Hey, before we get to today's great episode, wanted to let you know of a new exciting thing going on for the Lounge. For the first time since we started this podcast, the Lounge has entered into a partnership with a company that is aligned in how we think. Completely stop gambling. So Betttr is giving away 200 free subscriptions for life to the first 200 users from this podcast. Download Betttr, find the link in the show notes, or searching Betttr in your app store. So it's Betttr, BETTR, quit gambling. Search for that on the App Store or click into the link in the podcast show notes. So I'll see you on Betttr. And now to today's episode. Welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. My name's Eric, and I'm a compulsive gambler.
And my name is Alyssa, and I'm also a compulsive gambler.
And we are in recovery.
Yes, we are.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Gambling Recovery Lounge. We are kicking off season 2. Alyssa, we've been away for 6 weeks?
Yeah, something like that.
It's been
a time.
It has been. It feels like a long time, even though the first 6 episodes we did in 6 straight weeks.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. And that was quite unsuspecting. And so I was a little tired at the end.
I know. It was good. Did you do anything exciting during the break?
Yeah, we went on vacation.
Where'd you go?
We went to Italia.
Italy, nice.
Yes, courtesy of no longer gambling. Right. I can afford to go on vacation again.
You know
Something
what? Yeah.
I didn't do.
Yeah, we took a trip last week to Cabo. It's same thing. I could actually pay for the vacation. It was Edgardo's 55th birthday, so it was nice to be able to do something for somebody other than myself, as I was so selfish for so long.
Happy birthday, Edgardo.
Yes, happy birthday. Speaking of Edgardo and Sebastian, let's recap a little bit about season 1. So first off, we want to thank everybody out there for listening. We've had nearly 1,000 downloads of the podcast, for the first
Amazing.
6 episodes that we did. And, we had no expectations, right, when we started of how this would resonate with people, how many people would actually listen. And it's just incredible to see how much activity that there's been, and not just within the United States, all over the world.
All over the world.
And that's what this was all about. When we set out to do this, it was to help as many people as we can, both from a problem gambling perspective, as well as the loved ones affected by the problem gambling.
Yeah, and doing this has really accelerated my recovery. I think it's helping me too. So we're changing lives, not only others, but ours too.
Absolutely. And, we also wanted to, one of the things that is hugely successful about what we've done is in the first 6 episodes, we have huge support. I mean, Alyssa and I get the microphone, but first of all, credit to Sebastian, Alyssa's husband, who's doing all of the sound editing, producing of the show. When you all hear the final product, there's been a lot of work that goes into editing. So Sebastian, thank you very much for all the work behind the scenes. And then Edgardo, who may not be doing the technical piece of it, a huge thank you for all the collaboration, the advice that you've given, the suggestions that you've given, helped with the guests that have come on to help them feel comfortable. So thank you.
And the After Lounge, we must not forget.
The After Lounge.
The After Lounge.
Which will make an appearance, I think, at some point.
Yes.
So thank you, Sebastian, and thank you for Edgardo for all the support. And thank you again
thank you both.
to all the
We love
listeners. And we're really excited to kick off season 2 tonight. Our first guest this evening is going to be our great friend and brother in recovery, James. So, James, welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge.
Thank you.
Good to see you, man.
It's great to be here.
So, what do you think of the place?
It smells good. It smells fruity, not stripper fruity.
Thank you.
As we discussed.
Shout out to Anna.
Yeah, it's just great to be here.
Awesome.
I'm so glad it doesn't smell stripper fruity in here.
All right. So the way we're going to start is the way we start with each guest. James, we're going to ask you to talk about your recovery song. So sharing with us and the audience, what's the recovery song that you relate to, and maybe a little bit about why that recovery song means that to you.
So my recovery song, I chose Disclosure When a Fire Starts to Burn. And it's not necessarily a song that helped me through my recovery, but I was listening to that song quite a bit right around the time I first started abstaining from gambling. And I think I connected to gambling because it's about, when a fire starts to burn, it just builds on itself. So my recovery started, and it started burning like a fire. And that's how I came up with that.
Awesome.
I mean, it hurts like the burn of a fire, for sure.
At first, it does.
Yes, absolutely stings, 3rd degree.
I can't wait to hear that. I have not heard the lyrics to that song, so that
And
will
who
be
sings
added
that
to.
song?
Yeah, who's that by?
That's by Disclosure.
Okay.
Disclosure is the band.
Is the band, yeah.
And the song is
When a Fire Starts to Burn.
When a Fire Starts to Burn. Okay, we will be adding that to the Gambling Recovery Lounge playlist.
The playlist that
courtesy
Alyssa's
of Spotify.
working hard on, and can't wait to release that. All right, before we get into the in-depth discussion with James, Alyssa, let's remind everybody of our date of our last bets.
The date of my last bet was April 2nd, 2019, which was 1,894 days ago.
Nice. So like 5 years and 2 months. Awesome.
Something like that. Yes.
Today at 1,089 days. So in 1 week from today, I'm going to have 3 years. So one day at a time. Total miracle. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right. So James, let's start with you. What is the date of your last bet?
532 days ago.
Congratulations. Awesome. It's like a year and a half coming up on. That's awesome.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's dive into your story, James. So maybe talk to us a little bit about your upbringing, childhood, your, kind of your origin, and maybe some of the things that happened that kind of led you into the gambling portion of your life.
Literally nothing happened to lead me into gambling. Nothing. I had like a picture perfect childhood almost. I grew up in New York City until I was 7, and then I moved to a suburb of Boston, and just was like your typical suburban kid growing up. I skateboarded. I was good in school. I transferred over to a private school for my junior year of high school.
Was it like School Ties?
It wasn't like School Ties, no.
Bummer.
Do you want me to say it was like School Ties?
Kind of.
Okay.
I mean, it's New England, and it's like a private school.
I was Matt Damon.
Nice.
I was Matt Damon.
Congratulations.
Yeah. No. It wasn't actually. It was a very strange school. It was a Brownstone in Boston. It was like a really prestigious school, but it was tiny, like classes of like 15 kids. I graduated with 42 kids.
I know this. I went to the same kind of school.
You did?
Yeah, Knuckles. Nice.
Knuckles. Yeah, I did get into some trouble there. I mean, I was sort of I was getting into graffiti, and I liked smoking weed a lot, and so I was getting into some trouble at that point. But I was still pretty on the straight and narrow at that point.
Okay. So at what point does something happen in your childhood that leads you down any kind of path of different kind of behavior than we'll call a normal childhood?
Well, I'd say I'm a late bloomer. One could say I'm still blooming. Maybe I haven't even started blooming at 40. I don't know. But my childhood has continued on to this very day. But I think around 18 years old, I discovered that I was bipolar. And that was sort of the turning point for me in terms of, like, it's sort of like a chicken and an egg thing. I was probably always bipolar, but then that sort of came to the surface. And then I suffered through depression, and I left college. I left NYU after 1 year.
Oh, my dream school.
It was, it was not a dream year to be there, because my 2 weeks into my freshman year was September 11th.
Oh my gosh. So on top of this diagnosis, this happens. But bipolar, is this something that you think is attributed to the gambling addiction?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, bipolar people are like, we're drawn to risky behaviors.
Okay.
All sorts of risky behaviors. And I think pretty much every bipolar person I've met is like that. There are probably some outliers, but Yeah. So
Interesting.
that came to light, and I was it was a very tough time. And the gambling didn't come until years afterwards, but the behavior became my behavior became erratic at that age.
Now, when you were diagnosed, I assume you were introduced to some medication to help control that.
I was, yeah. I mean, I was introduced to all kinds of medication.
Including self, I'm sure. Self-medication's always.
Only self-medications, really. I mean, NYU, the first semester of NYU, I was just popping any pill I could get my hands on, and the cheaper, the better. So I was taking these things I didn't even know what they were. And, and then that, I think, kind of led to the first episode of depression. It was there was some mania in there probably, but I didn't know. At that point, I didn't know what was going on. So, but when the depression hit, it was like I was just incapacitated.
You could feel the pain.
Yeah, I could feel the pain.
And you didn't want to.
I did not want to.
Yeah.
No.
And you're an only child, correct?
I'm an only child.
So you were away at school at NYU. So in terms of your communication with your parents about the bipolar, all of that was out in the open, and like, how did all that go down? Did that have any kind of specific play into how the medication was working, or the alternatives to the medication?
Well, discovering that I was bipolar was like probably a 2-year process, or 1 or 2 year process there. So like nobody knew what was going on. I was just like going off the rails. I couldn't get out of bed. I wasn't going to class. I was failing out of my classes. And my mother, like, this ties back to me having a great childhood. My parents are amazing, and they've always been super supportive of me. My mother's a psychiatrist, and my father's a writer and a professor. But like, my father was the type of guy, like, he drove me to school, like up until I graduated high school, like every morning. He was just there for me all the time. So when I started suffering, like, they wanted to help me in any way that they could. So I was going to psychiatrists and taking antidepressants, and none of that was really working. So I sort of bombed out of school and came home, and then I became manic at home, living with my parents. And then they were a little less supportive.
Was it because you weren't distracted by, like, at school you had school, and even if you struggled, you still had this sort of like, you knew you had things to do, and then you didn't because you weren't in school anymore?
For me, it was seasonal. It didn't really have as much to do with school. It was like the winter in New York was so brutal, and I just didn't want to go outside. All I'd been doing the first semester, in the fall and whatnot, was partying. And then I just didn't want to do that anymore, and I didn't have anything to do, and I sort of isolated. So that was actually the beginning of the isolation.
So you were isolating before you started gambling?
Yeah, big time.
Enough to fall in love with it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was like, it was like torture to have to go out and socialize in the depths of my depression. That was like, I would have rather just be, had hot needles stuck into my eyeballs. You know what I mean?
So interesting, though, because you are a very outgoing person. I've only known you as somebody that's very, personable and well-spoken, and doesn't seem like they're nervous or like,
I think I am sometimes, but I can sort of overcome that, put on a good face. But back then I didn't have the tools.
Right. Okay.
So this is mostly in your early 20s when all this is kind of going on?
Yeah. I mean, I went to school to NYU right after I turned 18. And then so 19, I came home, moved in with my parents, had a massive manic episode. Also probably because I was doing, stimulants and whatnot. And then ended up in a mental hospital. And this was sort of like an involuntary lockdown. And that was I broke out of that.
Wait, you escaped?
I escaped.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the entry into to the mental hospital, that was your parents basically like, this is where you need to go to deal with this situation?
Yeah. Okay. So my father, who had previously been the most supportive person in the world for me and drove me to school, I remember, a lot of this is a blur, but I remember specifically one day driving around with him on the highway because he didn't know what to do with me. He just didn't know what to do with me. So he was driving with me. And I was like trying to smoke a joint like in his car, which I would never have done.
In the professor's car.
In the professor's car, yeah. And he wasn't like a cool kind of professor like that, really. I mean, he's a great guy, but he's not that cool, you know. So he dropped me off on the side of the highway. I remember this so clearly. He just dropped me off in the middle of nowhere at like a strip mall or something like that, like 50 miles from where we lived, and then he came back and got me a couple hours later. But like he was just lost. He just didn't know what to do with me.
Wow. Okay. So talk a little bit about this breakout of the mental hospital.
So I was put in there, you know, at some point after the highway incident and whatnot. And I called up a friend, sort of like an accomplice, and told him I was here and then I needed to be broken out. So he came to the parking lot of the hospital and waited for me like at the far end of the parking lot, and they would take us out for smoke breaks or just a walk or whatever it was. And so we were outside, and I said, do you mind if I walk, you know, a little further out in the parking lot? And they said, go ahead. And then I went and found the car and just jumped in and we just drove off. So it wasn't like a dramatic breakout, but it was, you know, technically an escape.
It will always be a dramatic breakout in my head because the visual on that was amazing.
They made a show. You remember that show, Prison Break?
Yeah.
This is kind of a new version of Prison Break. I want to call the folks in a network and see if we can make a documentary or something. So then what happens after that?
So I made my way to upstate New York because I needed a place to stay. I didn't have any money, and I had a friend who was living in this little town called Margaretville, New York, in the Catskills. And he liked to do drugs as much as I did. And he was sort of a buddy of mine growing up. We were best friends, kind of. And so he took me into his apartment, and he didn't really know what to do with me either. And we were just in with a bad crowd there. I spent 3 months there, I think, working odd jobs. Like I remember I worked at an A&P as a meat slicer in the deli, and I worked
at the grocery store for those of you on the list.
Yes. And it was just a chaotic time in my life. And then, you know, like clockwork, winter sets in, depression. I wanted to get out of there. I somehow made peace with my parents again, and then they took me back in, and I just went into a cocoon. I remember all I did for that, for like a number of months in a row was watch Seinfeld reruns in my parents' attic. Just hours and hours and hours and hours of Seinfeld. And I see pictures of myself from this time in my life. It's scary. I mean, I'm white as a sheet. Like my hair is just completely unkempt. I've got this beard coming out, this like scraggly beard, like just somebody who just has given up on themselves. Yeah.
Wow.
And this is when I'm 20. Like I should be sort of entering my prime, you know, physically. And I just looked awful.
Okay. So now this moves into the next chapter of your life. What happens?
I had to get a job. And you know, my parents said, you got to get a job. They needed to get me the hell out of the house. So I got a job as a waiter in a little cafe in Harvard Square in Cambridge. And
Boston atmosphere.
Oh yeah. And I was just still up to no good. Not gambling yet, but doing things like pilfering the whipped cream from the walk-in fridge and going out to the alley in the back and just
Whippets,
you know, and they would find me just crumpled against the brick wall in the alley. Have to kind of collect
be young
me
again.
Yeah, the joys of youth. You know? Yeah, it was rough. So I got a job as a waiter, and then I sort of I met someone who was working at a hotel, at a restaurant in a hotel. It was kind of a fancy hotel, fancy restaurant, and they gave me a recommendation. So I got a job there as a busboy, and then I felt like I was kind of making something of myself at that point. You know, I was wearing a button-up shirt with a tie, and I remember I poured Tom Brady's water once when he was there with Bridget Moynihan. This is I'm dating myself here, but this was 2003 or something like that.
I feel like the shit too.
Yeah,
I poured Tom Brady's water.
I feel like you made it in life. Right
yeah,
there.
yeah. I mean, for a kid from Boston,
Absolutely.
I mean, pouring Tom Brady's water. You've
as good as
He's like
pinnacle.
he's like a golden statue.
He is. He's a golden statue. He
In
owned
Boston,
He
yeah.
owned a building right down the street from that hotel as well. So I got that job, and that was cool. And then I kind of got into restaurant culture. I was sort of straddling the line between like being scholarly about restaurant culture, like learning about wines and food and pairing wine and food and whatnot, but then also doing copious amounts of drugs. And so those two things didn't really mix, and I wasn't that great at my job, and I was sort of, just not committing in any one direction or another. And then I got a job as an actual waiter in a restaurant that my friend's father owned right down the street from Fenway.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
And so this kind of segues into the gambling.
Okay.
Because I started making better money, going from like making maybe $100 to $150 a night to making like $100 to $300 a night or something like that,
Pretty good.
And so I actually, being a waiter is, for anybody who hasn't done it, is sort of like, it's like a trap. It's like a dead end. It's like just like this dead end career, and the money can be decent. You can survive on the money and just go nowhere. And if you just keep showing up, you'll continue to be a waiter. It's amazing how that happens.
Not that we're taking anybody's inventory out there who is a waiter.
Right. Being a waiter, sometimes I still fantasize about being a waiter. Like it was a fun time.
All right, so now you're going through the waitering stuff. The money's increasing, more money in the bank.
Not more money in the bank, actually. More weed to smoke.
Got it. All right, so you're spending the money on weed.
Yeah.
Had alcohol yet come into your life?
Definitely. And I should also mention I started a rap career at this point. I was rapping since I was like 16, but by I think 2021, after I'd kind of gotten over the hump of the bipolar stuff and gotten on a medication that was kind of working and sort of gotten my life together, I started pursuing a rap career. So that was, I was just smoking as much weed as I could, rapping as much as I could, and that was just life right there. I mean, I was sort of, and again, this is segueing into the gambling. It was like my fantasy life was that I was going to be a rapper. My real life was that I was a waiter, and I wasn't really going anywhere, but my ticket out was the rapping, and I was pretty good.
I've heard it actually. To those that are listening, I have heard
awesome.
James rap, and it is very good.
It is very good. All right, so let's do this because we're about to segue into the gambling. But I think it's always important, as we've done with each guest, to set up what else has gone on in the problem gambler's life, because as we've all, I think, experienced in recovery, when we look back at the truth of our history, it always stems from something else before we got into gambling, and it's always somewhere along the lines of emotional, mental kinds of illness. And what James, I think, set up with his childhood and the bipolar diagnosis and the drugs, you are now hearing another story about what ultimately leads into someone getting into gambling. So we're going to break there. We'll come back, and then James is going to get into his gambling history. Thanks. We'll be back on the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. All right, so we're about to transition James into his story about how gambling creeps into his life. So James, walk us through.
Okay, so I was working at this French bistro right down the street from Fenway Park in Boston. And one of the owners was this wild French dude named Loic. Loic. And Loic. I don't even know what kind of name that is. I guess that's Luc in French. I think it's Luc in French, but Loic Legarec. He's not anonymous, so
we're not going to get sued for that, are we?
No.
Okay, good.
Loic, if you're listening, you're the man.
Okay.
Yeah, this guy is off the wall. Anyways, he liked to party. Both of the restaurant owners like to party. So after our shifts, Loic started up a card game in the basement of the restaurant, and he didn't know how to play. Like, nobody knew how to play. It was just one of these $20 buy-in things, and we were playing No Limit Hold'em, and it was like a little tournament with rebuys. So you could just put in $20, and then like if you busted out, you could put in another 20. And like right off the bat, I was the guy who was putting in like $140 into the pot. So the pot would be like $180, and 140 of it would be mine.
Okay, can I just stop 1 second though? When did you even learn at all how to play poker?
I think I learned in that basement. I mean, I think that maybe I had played at some point,
okay.
But I don't remember. Like, I didn't get the bug until that game in the basement.
Got it.
And that was like a super casual game. So somebody must have explained the rules at some point. And I mean, I definitely didn't know what I was doing, but I caught on pretty quickly, that like a full house beats a flush and whatnot. And yeah, I was just the one shoveling my money into the pot. Whereas other people, if they would lose their $20 worth of chips, they would kind of just leave the game.
Okay. All right. So how does that start to escalate in your life day to day?
So I was being a rapper, doing rap things. Being a rapper was hard. It is hard. I'm sure it's hard for anybody.
Hustle.
It's a hustle for sure. And I was not a hustler. I was the one being hustled mostly in my life, which is probably what led me here. But yeah, so I was pursuing this rap career, and it wasn't really working out. And I started playing this game on a weekly basis. Maybe it was picking up like to a couple of nights a week, because everybody was kind of into it. It was kind of like a really fun thing to do at the end of the shift. We got paid in cash at the end of the shift, so I had cash. There was no time to go out and spend it on weed between the end of the shift and the game, so I had it. So I guess I became a gambling addict at the expense of my weed addiction. But the strategy, I guess I've just always been into strategy, and I've always been very competitive as well. So I really, really wanted to win. I think that was why I kept shoveling the money in there, because I figured if I just keep being aggressive and just keep going at it, I'm gonna win eventually. So I got into the strategy, and this was in 2006, maybe 2007. So online poker was like in full swing in the United States. And I say in the United States because I think it's been in full swing for a long time all over the rest of the world. But in the United States, it's had difficult time surviving because of the government. So just fast forward a little bit. In 2011, there was something called Black Friday, which is when the government shut down two of the biggest online poker sites. So that hadn't happened yet. So there was Full Tilt Poker, and there was Poker Stars. I mean, there were all kinds of online poker rooms that you could just get into if you lived in America. So I got into Full Tilt Poker. That was my site of choice. And I started playing tournaments, $10 tournaments, depositing like $50 at a time. And then I had like some minor success, as one does when one kind of picks up some of the strategy and kind of figures out what they're doing, and then has some good luck to go along with that. And I probably won. I think I remember winning like $300 in a $10 tournament. I might have placed in the top 5 or something like that. And I was just over the moon about it. I remember I was at my restaurant job at the same restaurant, and I went out back and I was smoking my joint or whatever, and I called up my dad and I was like, "Dad, I won $300 on this online tournament, and I'm gonna make this my career. I'm gonna do this for a living."
Here we go. The transition into the professional gambling.
That only
world.
took $300.
It only took 300. I was ambitious. Like I figured I figured I could do that, 3 times a week, and then all of a sudden I can
quit your job.
I quit my job. I don't have to try to keep hustling as a rapper, trying to get shows and promote myself and whatnot. Like I really didn't like that part of being a rapper. So I think I was trying to escape from my real life job and my sort of other fantasy life in a weird way. So I was doing like a dual escape.
Wow.
Interesting. Now, as you're doing this online stuff, were you still in that underground restaurant in-person game where you're doing terrible every single night?
I definitely improved. Like in that game broke at some point. It didn't go on for an extended period of time because normal people get bored of playing poker, drinking and playing poker like on a regular basis and shuffling around the same, $100, whatever, from person to person. Like
That's what I always thought, but it's good to hear from a poker player.
Yeah, not me. No, I could have done that forever, but that game broke.
Okay.
Loic wasn't having it anymore.
Okay.
So then,
And that's what drove you into the online world because you didn't have a physical place to go at that time?
yeah, and I don't think I even noticed because I was so involved in the online world, and that allowed me to isolate. Mm-hmm. Like playing online, I just sit there and smoke weed. Smoke 15 joints in a row and play 27 $2 tournaments.
That's like a whole nother level of isolation.
Yeah.
Online gambling.
Yeah. And I could spend an entire day doing this. Like there was nothing that I would rather be doing. I could be playing a dollar tournament. It didn't matter. It's just the money. It wasn't about the money.
Clearly.
Here we go, escaping into the dream world of gambling, right? Okay, so now as this online activity is happening, what was your living situation at that point?
Well, I'd managed to kind of get my life together enough to have an apartment a nice little apartment right outside of Harvard Square, Cambridge, that I was living in with my girlfriend at the time.
Okay, and then where does this go now? In terms of the escalation of gambling?
We go from 0 to 100 real quick at this point.
Okay.
As things tends to happen when you introduce the internet to a gambling any situation, but a gambling situation, first and foremost. So I wanted to win. I was playing these tournaments, and then I got into cash games. So just for anybody who doesn't know, there's kind of 2 main formats of poker. There's tournaments, which have a beginning and an end, and cash games, which can just go on forever as long as you don't run out of money. You can just keep buying in and just keep playing, and as long as the game doesn't break, like everybody gets up and leaves, then it just can go on forever. So I got into cash games, tournaments, and then I started buying books. And I think the books were a big indicator of, my addiction, of where I was headed. Really.
Books of how do I become a professional poker player?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Got it. All right. So you had your mind set on where your journey was headed.
Yeah.
Now, had you destroyed that relationship you were in by this point and all the gambling?
Not yet. No, not yet. But I was staying up. So at this point in time, there was a show on TV called Poker After Dark. And it was like...
Sounds kinky.
Anybody who's a poker player knows
exactly what
about this show. Yeah. And it was like... That's the other thing, is that I became sort of like a fan of poker, as if it were like a legitimate sport. Like the way people follow football or basketball or whatever, they have their favorite players. I had my favorite poker players, and I was idolizing these guys, and I was watching their play on these shows, and this was just the height. Like there was the poker boom in 2003, which was set off by a guy named Chris Moneymaker. But then from 2003, the next decade or so was like poker just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you had these personalities that were just larger than life. So I was just watching these shows, just obsessed with these dudes playing high stakes cash games on TV.
And this is when like the ESPN was televising the World Series of poker tournaments. Is this kind of what you're alluding to?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. And that only happens once a year, right. But these cash games were happening all year. So I would watch these shows. I would, my poor girlfriend at the time, she had to sit through, hours and hours and hours of these shows. And then she would go to bed and I would stay up and play online.
Got it. Okay. All right. So where does this take you?
This takes me to essentially being evicted. The relationship dissolved, and my girlfriend at the time and I had this arrangement, this crazy arrangement. This is like indicative of full-blown gambling behavior. I somehow negotiated an arrangement where I would pay for the weed that we smoked, because she smoked a lot of weed too. And we were smoking like $800 worth of weed a month or something. And I think our rent, like half of our rent was $800. So I did this funky math where like if I paid for the weed, she would pay for the rent. And she agreed to that. And I thought I was getting away with one. But actually, I think at the end of the day, it was her who was getting away with one because she just wasn't paying the rent.
Oh. So that's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say she started smoking more weed to deal with your behavior.
So
she got the weed. She got to smoke the weed too. So yeah. she got away with one.
So it sounds like combined destructive behavior.
Definitely.
Got it.
Definitely. And so that came to light, the fact that we were, thousands and thousands of dollars, behind in rent, and I didn't know it. And she just immediately split, like we broke up, and then she went back to Texas where she was from and like left all of her belongings. She left her car. It was crazy. It was just like...
And the rent bill?
And the rent bill, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
And all right. So now you're evicted.
Yeah.
And what happens to James now?
I don't even really remember, to be honest. I think I must have moved back in with my parents at some point. This began like a series of like apartment hops. And this part of my life, I was just moving a lot and having roommates and just going from place to place around Boston, anything that I could kind of afford, and constantly relying on my parents. Like my parents had to pay off the back rent that was due from that apartment in Harvard Square, and then if I needed to pay a security deposit or whatever, I never had that money. I never had any of that money. So my poor parents, were I guess enabling, but. Now,
had you been honest with your parents about all the gambling at this point or not yet?
No, I don't think so. I don't even think that I knew that I had a problem. I think that I just thought that I was on the path. This was just the path that a professional poker player has.
You're just working out the kinks.
Just working out the kinks. It's all gonna
following your career path.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So then what happens? Because eventually here you get to Los Angeles.
Right. So a lot actually happened in between that. I went to California on a trip with my parents. I think it was when my grandmother died. So we were out there, and I was just obsessed with poker. And at this point, this is when real addictive behavior is coming out. So like we're there for my grandmother's funeral. I'm just thinking about like how am I gonna play poker? And there was a casino. We were in Santa Barbara, so I found out there was a casino called Chumash, which many of you are probably familiar with, right? And I was not familiar with it at all. And I went there, and I was just shocked because the max buy-in at this table was $60 for a $1 and $2 blinds, and that probably doesn't mean anything if you don't know poker. But basically, to play those stakes, you need like $300 in front of you. So to have $60 is just crazy. You're just kind of all in every hand, and this was a story that I've shared at meetings many times before because I drove the rental car that we had. I asked my parents if I could borrow the rental car to go to the casino, and my dad, and I'm 27 at this point. Like I'm a grown man, like just behaving like a child, sort of playing the role of a child. And so my father says, yeah, go ahead, take the car, go to the casino, just come back before the sun goes down, because my father grew up in Santa Barbara, and he says, these roads get super foggy and there's no lights and it's really dangerous. And I said, all right, yeah, whatever, Dad. And then so I go to the casino and playing, and then I'm looking at my watch, and it's screw it. I know it's 8 o'clock. I'm gonna just keep playing. I'm in a good game, whatever. I'm enjoying it. So I leave. It's just dark outside. I drive back with the rental car, and lo and behold, I get rear-ended in a patch of fog. And it was like one of those moments where, it's like my dad was right, and I couldn't say anything.
God shot.
Sorry.
We knew there was going to be one. At some point,
and that's
right?
Eric's middle name. I'm sorry, nickname. So
all right. So how'd you explain that to Dad?
Oh, he was furious. He knew I was going to the casino. They didn't really still like 2 and 2 were not put together really on my side of things and on their side of things. Like nobody really knew that I had like a serious problem with card playing at this point. And I wasn't doing any other kind of gambling. I was just obsessed with poker. So I remember on that trip, I was like, I gotta play more when I get back to Boston. How am I gonna do that? And we came back to Boston, and I remember I was going online looking for real games, because I think this was right after actually Black Friday happened. So I couldn't play online anymore. And that like really kind of devastated my poker playing. There were a few like really sketchy sites that you could play on, but there was so many problems depositing and getting your money back if you ever made any money, and it was nearly impossible to get it back. So I went online and I found an in-person game. And I remember the first game that I went to, it was some random people, and I went to their house, and like there was like 10 of them there, and none of them really knew what they were doing. And I had been playing a lot of poker at this point, so I just crushed them, and I won all the money. And I was like, I'm a professional. This is how professionals do things. And so I went back to the back of the newspaper, and I found another game, but this was a game of a different ilk. Ooh. And I showed up at this game, and this game was a real bona fide business being run by sharks. And there were people playing in this game who probably did make a living playing cards, even though it was pretty low stakes. And this game ran every night. So the guy who was running the game, he was making a pretty penny off of it. And it would kind of move from apartment to apartment every few months because they would get robbed. Luckily, I was never there when they got robbed. But that was the beginning of the end for me.
Got it. And were you still working as a waiter at this point when you're back in Boston?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah. I worked at that French bistro for 7 years.
Got it. Okay. All right. So the beginning of the end. So describe that, and then what happens to get you to California?
So I just was making my waiter money every night, and then taking it to this underground card room where they were playing serious poker, and I was getting clobbered night after night. And again, it was just like the introduction to the online world. It's like, how can I be getting beaten this badly? Like, I need to get better. And the only way to get better is to keep playing. But I didn't have any money. So I was like the guy who was sitting down with like $100, $150 like every night. And everybody else had like $500 in front of them. And I would just be waiting around for good cards and that you can't win playing like that. You can't, if you don't have money, you have no business playing these stakes. Like, poker has something called bankroll management. And for a cash game, if you're doing this recreationally or professionally, you're supposed to have like 50 buy-ins. And so for a game like that, a buy-in is $300. 50 buy-ins, I mean, $15,000. I'd never even put together $3,000 of savings in my life. Right. You know, I'm just coming with my little $150, $200 that I would make every night and just torching it.
Just might as well flush it down the toilet.
Exactly.
You had no chance.
Exactly. And this is actually when alcohol became a big factor, because I'd always sort of enjoyed drinking, but I was losing so much and it was just so painful. And I was sort of playing like scared poker. And when I would drink, I would, play a little less scared. And I would lose. I would pretty much always lose, but like I would win a little bit more because I would kind of get out there and get aggressive, and then the drinking escalated, and then I wasn't learning strategy anymore. I was just getting drunk in this underground card game, playing crappy poker, losing my money every night.
Would you say the ultimate experience in numbing out?
Ultimate experience in money. I mean, in numbing out. I remember just being drunk at the table and then having weed and going into the smoking room and, knowing that I had my chips at the table. Like I hadn't gotten stacked yet. That's what we call losing your money. I hadn't gotten stacked yet. So I'd have some chips on the table and I'd leave, go to the smoking room, smoke a joint. And that was just like the ultimate numbing out. Like there was nothing better for me than smoking that weed in the smoking room and knowing that my chips were waiting for me, in the other room.
Ooh, powerful. All right. So what gets you to come to California?
So I was in another relationship and that ended badly, mainly because of the gambling. Yeah, I was going to this underground card game night after night, until 4 or 5 in the morning, coming home, and that, doesn't bode well for a relationship. And so that happened, and I was back again, sort of in the exact same spot that I was, 10 years earlier or whatever it was. I moved back. I didn't have any money. I had to leave this apartment and back with my parents.
Rinse, repeat.
Exactly. Except I'm 32 at this point. Time has passed. I didn't notice that it passed.
You're in a new decade and the same experience.
Same experience. Yeah. I had been apartment hopping, job hopping. At this point, I was out of the French bistro. I was actually becoming a more skilled waiter and like learning a lot about food and wine and getting pretty good at my job there. But just not making any progress as a human being, really. So I broke up. The relationship ended back at my parents' house, and I started taking screenwriting courses, and I just loved it. And so I've always enjoyed writing. So I thought I was pretty good at it. So I thought, why not pursue this? And my parents were into it, and they were willing to support me and help me out. So I moved back in with them for a year at 32 or whatever it was. And that was my most chaotic year of gambling of my life, for sure. And I was just out every night. And I think I was saving money to go to Los Angeles. I remember I had to give my money to my father. And I saved up $5,000 over the course of 5-6 months, something like that. And somehow in December or January, I convinced my parents to give me that money because they were holding it for me. And I convinced them to give me that money. And then that was my poker bankroll. And now all of a sudden I had $5,000. So I was going to these underground games and buying in for $1,000 and playing super aggressively. And I'd been playing for a decade now or whatever it was. So I sort of knew what was going on at the poker table. I knew how to conduct myself. And so I wasn't losing as much, but I was still drinking a ton and so I was just playing more than I ever had before.
Reckless behavior.
Reckless behavior. Yeah, exactly. And I'm staying living with my parents' house, and they had we came up with rules about like a curfew. Like I couldn't come home past 12. So if I was playing and I still had money and it was like 11:45, I would just I would text them and say I'm not coming home tonight, and then I would like book a hotel room and book the cheapest hotel room I could and just get around it like that. So it was super chaotic for everyone. And somehow I managed to make it through that year. And I remember my parents saying, James, like, what are you doing? Like, you're moving to Los Angeles. You have to be planning your life. And I was like, yeah. No, I'm out. Like, I'm in Rhode Island right now. I'm at Twin Rivers Casino. I'm busy right now. And I was just I was still planning my career as a professional poker player while sort of having this facade of being a screenwriter who was moving to Los Angeles.
And at this point, your parents still have no concept of what's really going on inside the mind of James.
They had never gambled. I mean, this was something that was completely foreign to them. I think they knew that I had drinking and drug issues and whatnot, but I was never like in the gutter or like in a rehab. I was sort of functioning, so, and so basically the night before I moved to Los Angeles, I mean, it was like, you couldn't make this stuff up. Like I remember I had $4,000 left of this savings that I was supposed to come to Los Angeles with. And I had like a living situation set up. I was going to go be in a school, like this school program for screenwriting in LA. It was all set up for me. And I had $4,000 of savings that I was going to live on. And the night before I flew to Los Angeles, I went to a game. I had a going away party with all my friends. I got blackout drunk. I went to a game and I lost half of that money. I lost $2,000, which was a lot for me, and it was a lot at those stakes, and it was just completely debilitating. And I remember waking up the next morning, and I guess that must have been my rock bottom.
Okay. So then you still get on the plane though to come to LA.
Yeah, I get on the plane to come to LA, and I have a living situation set up for me. This is again all my parents. Like my parents making all of this happen for me. I have a rental car, paid for. It's sort of like part of this whole situation of where they're supporting me and supporting my move. And the saving grace sort of about Los Angeles is that, well, there's tons of card rooms, right? Like there's not casinos for like full on casinos, but there's Los Angeles is like a poker city. And it's like, I mean, it may be like the biggest poker city in America, maybe, as far as I know. I mean, there's a lot of poker here. So, and I think I knew that. I didn't know. I found out. I definitely found out.
That's not why you picked Los Angeles.
No, it's not why I picked Los Angeles.
It was just like an added bonus.
It was an added bonus.
Nice.
But the thing is, you have to drive so much that I couldn't drink. I'm not into drinking and driving, and I just wasn't that reckless. So I was playing constantly Hollywood Park Casino, Hustler Casino, Commerce, Bicycle, but I wasn't drinking. So I was actually playing like decent poker at this point and not like losing my shirt all the time. But I was completely obsessed. Like, and I was I had an internship at a film production company, and I was sort of supposed to be going down this path of sort of entering the entertainment world or the film world. And I couldn't have given two craps about that. I was still on the path of becoming a professional poker player.
Wow. Okay. So now you're in the card rooms of Los Angeles. You're in the living situation you're in. And so now what happens?
At some point, I found myself out of money again. Still enjoying some drugs recreationally, not as much, but still sort of just eking by. At this point, part of my support package here in Los Angeles was my rent was being paid for me for I think the first 2 years that I was here. It was sort of like money that I would have inherited. But so it was like sort of fronted to me
From your parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mainly, from my grandmother, sort of grandmother inheritance, whatever. There was some money there, and so it was being put towards my rent. And so, actually, what happened was my rent would come in just before the first, but as time went by, the rent started coming in. I think just because of days in the calendar or something like that, the rent started coming in earlier and earlier and earlier, until all of a sudden I was getting the rent money in like the middle of the month. And so that gave me some time to like take it and play with it when I was out of money. And so I started doing that and like taking that rent money when I didn't have any money, and I would go to Vegas.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Now you're going to Vegas.
Now I'm going to Vegas, right? And then I'm coming back penniless, and then driving Uber to sort of make it up in the 10 days that I have before I have to pay the rent. And this all got super stressful at some point, and I found this online site where I could play, and I remember I was playing like 10 cent, 25 cent cash games online with like $50 or something. I would deposit $50 and play on this, and then at this point I'm like, I've been doing this for 10 years, 12 years or something. Like, is this what a professional does?
This is no longer a normal way of thinking and living.
I mean, I'm going backwards. Like, I was playing higher stakes, when I was in Boston, and now I'm playing these penny stakes online because it's all I could do. I'm like really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. And I had gone to a meeting in Boston. I had a therapist who, actually this therapist that I had right before I started seeing him right before I moved to LA. He knew right away that I had a gambling problem. So he was like, you got to go to a program. You got to go to a meeting. And so I did. And I wasn't ready. In Boston, I wasn't ready. So here I was in LA now, fast forward a couple of years, and I'm playing on, these dinky stakes. And then I actually found an underground room, just like, kind of I'd been playing Boston, and it's just these maniacs. Like I went to this game, I think it was somewhere in the valley.
Was it Molly's game?
If I had remained Matt Damon from my school days,
right.
I would have been in that game.
That's right. Okay.
But I didn't. At some point, I transitioned into me, and then so here I was.
We'll take a break there, and then we're going to get into the recovery part of James's story in the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. All right, we're now going to transition to James's story of recovery. All right, so James, when we left off, you were talking about coming into your first meeting. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So I came in just miserable. I dragged myself kicking and screaming to this meeting. I think at the behest of the therapist, just to kind of get him off my back. Still seeing this guy once a week, and really just had to get to this meeting. I don't know what it was. I can't remember why exactly. I mean, I didn't have my rock bottom had been a year or two prior, really. So it wasn't like I had a rock bottom that led me into the meeting. It was just sort of this realization that what I was doing was pathetic. It was just sad. And it was sad to me. I didn't want to be a sad person and think that what I was doing with my life was sad. So I went into the meeting, and I was sad in the meeting, and I was angry, and I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I didn't want to look at anyone, and I didn't want to, be there. I didn't want to think that I needed to be there, but I kept going back once a week. It was Sunday night, and I just go back, and turned out some of the people there were pretty cool. And I started talking to them. Eventually, they kind of, in the meeting after the meeting, we call it, in the parking lot. And realized that these people were actually very, very interesting. some of them, and
Very intelligent.
very intelligent.
Yes, a lot of people in recovery, gambling addiction recovery, are very smart people.
And I thought that these people would all be like destitute for some reason.
Degenerates.
Degenerates for sure. And I think they all were degenerates, but they weren't destitute. They had like very interesting sort of there was a variety of people, very wealthy people, people working all kinds of different industries and whatnot. And they liked me, I was sort of surprised by that. I sort of,
Which is so weird because you're such a likable person. Very funny guy. Very funny guy. But wow.
So you're going there once a week and you're staying abstinent from gambling. So what's happening with your life as this is going on? What were you doing now career-wise? The screenwriting, that's why you came to LA. So like what was actually happening in your life?
I think I was still driving for Lyft at that point. And I was doing, what was I doing? I was going to community college. At some point I had decided to go back to get my degree. So I was going to Los Angeles City College, which is where I met Anna, who is now my wife.
We love Anna.
Shout out.
More than we love you. We love you, but we love Anna more.
We met in geography class.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, that's what I was doing. I was mainly going to school at that point and driving Lyft. I think still getting financial assistance while I was in school. So that was sort of like part of the deal if I was in school.
From your parents?
Yeah, from my parents.
Now, did they know at this point anything about your gambling? Or are they just still supporting the dream of the, film writer?
They just never got it. They still don't get it.
Probably really smart. I mean, it sounds like your parents were very smart, intellectual people.
Yeah, but it kind of baffles me is like they never really. It's not like they didn't care, but like I think at one point I remember talking to them and sort of alluding to like suicide, being like, yeah, I really feel bad. Like I'm doing a lot of gambling and like 1 out of 3 people with bipolar who has a gambling addiction dies by suicide. And I remember telling them that to like kind of like give them just kind of nail home the point that I was not doing well. And they just were like unfazed by that. Like as if like I wasn't going to do that and like I was just sort of on a good path now.
Would you say they were in denial or just not wanting to believe that their son could be one of those statistics?
Or just unaware?
It was very insensitive of me to sort of allude to something like that because my father there's a lot of suicide in his family, which is like his father, his sister, both committed suicide. So he's been through a lot of that. And I don't know, maybe he just couldn't even bear to think about that happening. But like I don't think that they saw me as somebody who was having some kind of debilitating addiction problem. I was sort of getting by and doing the things I was supposed to be and checking the boxes that I was supposed to be checking. Like the whole time, even before moving to LA, I was sort of being dragged, kicking and screaming, but doing the things that I needed to do, just the bare minimum, but doing the bare minimum. And I think that just by me doing that, they sort of believed that I was okay.
Got it.
And they couldn't see it on you like you can see with like an alcoholic or a drug addict, like bloodshot eyes or stinking and reeking of alcohol or whatever.
Exactly. It was just so foreign to them that they just didn't understand.
I think we all agree, right? In recovery now, we're in a public health crisis.
Absolutely.
And we're all very, very grateful to be on the other side of the fence now, right? Yeah. So you're going to community college, you're doing the Lyft stuff, maybe screenwriting on the side, you're going to meetings. So like, how does this now sort of continue to progress in the life of James?
So I got really into fitness at some point. When I was still gambling and I needed to do things that didn't cost any money because I would run out of money all the time. So, and I could just go to the park and like do pull-ups and didn't need a gym membership, didn't need anything like that. So I would do that a lot. And then I kind of went down that rabbit hole. And I just never really stopped. So I was going to meetings. I was not gambling. And I should also say that my parents were very supportive of me going to meetings and very happy. And they always wanted to hear about it. But still, they just didn't really
Same.
understand.
Yes.
Yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
Yep, same here too. Okay, so now you're delving into a physical fitness, career as it has turned out to be now. We don't want to fast forward too much, but
yeah, that's exactly where we're at. And actually the meetings tied directly into my next career path. So I was getting sort of physically fit, and I made a friend in a meeting who turned out he owned a gym. I didn't know that, but we were running one day, or like on a hike or running something, and he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, you look like you could be a trainer." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Yeah, I own a gym. Why don't you come be a trainer at my gym?" And because he's crazy, he's a crazy guy. He's a degenerate, just like reckless dude. Like, I don't know, just hire this guy. He doesn't impulsive, right? And so he hired me, and I was very serious about it, and was training people in the gym and loving every minute of it. And then boom, pandemic hit. So I was training people at their homes. I was taking these clients from the gym and I was going to their homes because they still wanted to train. And yet the gym was still taking half the money. And so I said, what's going on with this?
Hustler.
So I left the gym, basically, essentially stole the clients, but it was not like, I don't think there was anything, it wasn't some kind of like devious plan that I had. It just kind of worked out that way. And then that's what I'm doing now. I'm an in-home trainer. I go to people's houses, do fitness sessions.
And I've seen the bodies that you have sculpted, and they're looking good.
you're very successful at what you do, James. All right, so now we're in the pandemic, and in-person meetings start to fold.
Yes.
And I think that Sunday night meeting you always went to weekly was one of those meetings that folded, right?
Yes.
So now what happens?
So this is sort of like the next act for sure. So I had gotten a couple years of abstinence under my belt.
I remember.
You remember, yeah?
Because I came in about 6 months before the pandemic happened. I started recovery and met you.
Yeah, and I mean, we had very similar times, I think, at this point.
No.
You came in
I came in way
later?
Yeah, you were an old timer when I came in.
I was an old timer. I was an old timer. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were. I mean, to me, you were.
Well, I think
You were running the meeting. That's why I
was running the meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started taking commitment. So I got in pretty deep into the meeting. Took a secretary position, and then sort of I was just really, really into that meeting. And so I got a couple years of abstinence under my belt. The financial assistance from my parents stopped, but that wasn't a problem anymore because I was making some money and I wasn't gambling. And then I had a little fender bender in Hollywood. I was going to play some tennis, and I got rear-ended. Just like a really minor thing. Like the person was going like 3 miles an hour, but they had this big Jeep, and they hit my fender, and it like damaged the chassis of the car, which is essentially means that it's totaled. And this was a car that I didn't at no point, even up to this point, could I have bought myself a car. So my mother had given me my car that I was driving then, and so they bumped the fender, and I got, I think, $8,000 or something, was because the car had less than 100,000 miles on it. So they gave me $8,000, which still at that point to me was a ton of money. And I got really, really fired up about that. I remember just being at community college, being 36 or whatever I was, like calling the insurance person or whatever, like, when's the check coming in? When's the check coming in? And that got my juices flowing. And then pandemic happened, and then I had this savings. I had like, I don't know, 10 grand or something like that, because of this this money, and I bought like a kind of a beater car, like an old Honda Civic, but so I had money left over, and then the pandemic, happened, and in-person meetings shut down, and I stopped going. And I wasn't going to, I went to a couple of Zoom meetings, but I just wasn't into it. And then cryptocurrency caught my eye.
Oh, now the transition from poker to crypto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting because not a lot of people have spoken about these new forms of gambling. So this is going to be really interesting for our listeners.
Oh, and super relevant right now because, crypto is hot right now. Kind of goes through phases. And I didn't know anything about it. And actually, the transition from poker to crypto is very cliche, I've come to learn. Like, all of those people that I was watching play poker on TV in 2007, 2008, like, most of them have just become filthy rich because of crypto and no longer play poker. It's like there's no money compared to crypto. There's no money to be made in poker. So, anyways, I was, without knowing it, I was going down this very cliche path, and putting my abstinence at risk. And I remember in the beginning watching this. I picked some crypto coin that I had my eye on, and I kept watching it. And it kept going up, and I was like, damn, if I had bought that last month, I would have 3 times the money that I have now. And it just kept going up and up and up. And I was like, And the time between my last meeting just kept getting further and further away. And then at some point, I was able to convince myself that I was not gambling. I was not losing my abstinence by buying crypto. And so I, just like anything else, like it's slippery slope. Like I started off buying the gateway. Yeah. It was like a couple $1,000s or whatever. And, like so many other people, in gambling, the worst thing that can happen is that you can win. Yeah. So I got into this crypto market at the beginning of what they call a bull run, which is when, the chart has been kind of flat for a year or two, and then all of a sudden just spikes way up for pretty much, you could throw a rock at any crypto coin that you want and you're going to make money on it. So I started doing this like just obsessively, like went from, again, 0 to 100. And,
like studying it like you did with poker.
Not even studying it, just getting to know the ins and outs of getting cash into these sites and then being able to buy the coins and sell them and then converting that back into cash. It's kind of tricky.
Sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting, but the thing is not studying, but going from like, there's like Bitcoin, which is sort of like the one that everybody knows, and Ethereum. And then there's like 10 million other coins that are like these tiny little things that nobody knows about, and you can make gargantuan returns on them, but like they're incredible. So it's just volatility. It's like Bitcoin itself is very volatile.
Now, did you know the stock market at all, or this was just crypto was its own market and you had no activity or knowledge really of the traditional quote unquote stock exchange that I think a lot of gamblers also get involved with?
Doing it in the crypto as well. And I picked this crypto very early on that made just astronomical returns. And I didn't hang on to it to make those astronomical returns, but like I, made a $2,000 investment into this very, very risky coin that, turned into $40,000 or something like that, which was a lot more money than I'd ever won in my entire gambling career. And so there I was thinking, okay, now I'm a professional crypto trader.
Okay, so now fast forward to, I guess, in-person meetings now start returning because the pandemic's subsiding. So meetings are opening back up. So then what happens?
Well, I'm going to meetings and I'm keeping my days. and I'm lying to myself and lying to everybody else, but like lying to myself so I didn't think that I was lying to anyone. I just sort of justified this as like, being, I don't know, essentially being a good capitalist, just taking part in being a good American, Good Americans buy Bitcoin, right? So
Totally.
yeah. So I was doing this. I'd also had some nasty experiences in the crypto world. Like I gotten scammed. The crypto world is just full of scammers. I mean, shocking.
Well, it's so much more anonymity in crypto than like at a bank. Like they can't really. I don't even know.
That's the whole thing behind it. Yeah, is the anonymity for sure. But these people who know, these hackers like can just take you to the cleaners anytime they want, and not even hackers. Like I got like I said, like I'm usually the one getting hustled. Like I remember I tried to transfer some coins from one wallet to another. This is all online, right? And they disappeared, and I freaked out because it was like $7,000 worth of this coin.
It's fake.
This fake internet
That's how
money.
I see it, like the fake internet money. Yeah. Like, it's weird.
And I went on like Telegram is where all this happened. So there's a Telegram messaging app, and there was somebody who claimed to be the customer service for this coin. Well, that should have been a red flag right there. But I decided to believe it, and they said, "Oh, just do this, and this, and then you're gonna fix your problem." And they were super pushy about it, like do it now. Yeah, and they tricked me into handing over the keys to my wallet, and then I just literally watched my wallet drain $13,000 out of this crypto wallet, just boom, 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 coin after coin, all going, and there's nothing I could do about it, and it just made me sick to my stomach. So, anyways, I had sort of curtailed the crypto activity. And I think I was doing just mostly stock stuff at this point, kind of leaned into the stock stuff. And
It's still going to meetings, though.
and still going to meetings, yeah.
And still lying to everybody about that this is going on.
Yeah, still just lying by omission, right? I mean, I don't think I ever brought it up. I just was abstaining from poker because poker was the reason I was in there. And then since I kind of was not doing the crypto so much, I leaned more and more into the stock stuff, and I was actually kind of not. I guess I wasn't good at it, but I was making money for a certain period of time, not doing options or any of this crazy stuff, just like sort of doing trades, buying low and then selling high, and I was pretty conservative about it. And then, unfortunately, my sponsor. My previous sponsor from the Sunday night meeting, he kind of went off the rails and was super into the stock stuff, and we were just getting fired up together and just going at it with the stocks. And he was calling me his meme stock sponsor, and we were like two peas in a pod there. So I started getting, it started going off the rails. I lost all the money that I made in the crypto market, in the stock market.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
And then, and I think it was a particularly bad week. And I was going in. I think you were gonna nominate me for secretary or something like that. And I just was like, I can't be the secretary of this meeting. I'm like, this is crazy.
Is that why you were
It
squirming?
was, I remember it was Christmas Eve, I think, 2022.
Yeah, it was right around that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In that last week of the month.
Yeah. So I reset my time. I said, this is day one. I got to reset my time. This is one of the hardest things I've ever done. I mean, it was really hard.
And sitting on the other side, I will say that I was shocked. It was like one of those shockers where like I never thought that you would be somebody that came back in and had to reset your time.
Yeah.
I just, because you were such you were running the meeting when I first came in. So like, I always had put the people that were running meetings or, heavy into service and recovery on a pedestal because like, obviously they were knowledgeable or they wouldn't be in that position. Right.
Totally.
But it is a service position, and so I just always like looked to those to guide me for what recovery was.
Totally.
Interesting.
And it was you had over 4 years of time when that all happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, I still remember the moment when you did that. It was incredibly brave and powerful. And, I know I was one of the many people that really appreciated what you did that day. So I'm proud of you for that. So,
Well, thank you. But people mentioned how disappointed they were as well. And that was hard because I was sort of patting myself on the back, as well. Like, you did the right thing, but then there's this disappointment, and people communicated that, and it's like, man, I let these people down for sure. But I did the right thing, kind of get past it. And I'm not the type of person to kind of get hung up on like the number of days I have, or it's like, just water under the bridge now and just got to keep making better decisions moving forward.
Well, yeah, you lose your abstinence, but you don't lose your recovery. I mean,
Right.
You had 4 years and you were heavy in it. You don't forget everything when you go back out.
Right. And I'm not like the person who first came into the rooms all miserable and not knowing anybody and afraid to talk to people and whatnot. Like I'm established.
Looking for donuts.
Not finding any donuts.
So well, yeah, let me ask that question, because I'm not sure I've asked you this before, like privately, but so during those 4 years of abstinence, you obviously had a lot of improvement in all aspects of your life. Your character got better. All these things improved, I think, right? So let's say as the lying was going on and you're doing the stock and the crypto and you're still going to meetings, but you're not talking about that, do you feel like your behavior, your bad character defects from when you were a reckless gambler as a poker player, were those creeping back into your life in the same kind of way? And now you're in a new relationship with Anna, who's experiencing this with you for the first time. She wasn't part of your history as a poker player. So what's your assessment of what James was like in that facet of we'll call it the relapse, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, but like I was lying to myself so heavily that I was not, there was no part of me that thought I'm lying to my friends and this community. No part of me. Until that moment when I had a reckless week of trading and you were going to nominate me for secretary, and at no point was I thinking, oh, I'm lying. Like I'm lying. And at no point was I thinking that my behavior was sort of reverting back to this poker behavior, poker playing days behavior, when in fact it was. And Anna, unfortunately, or for better or worse, sort of pointed out to me that when I was sort of making a bunch of money in crypto, I was being a complete douchebag. And I had no idea. No, I thought I was the man. I thought I was this like, slick crypto trader who could just turn anything to gold, just by touching it. And I pulled the wool over my own eyes.
So it was happening, whether you wanted to admit it or not. The truth serum was the person who loved you the most and that you loved the most.
Definitely.
Well, you got to the right place. Eventually you got to the right place. All right, so now you admit the relapse. This is now almost a year and a half ago. So kind of talk about what's now happened since that day, about a year and a half ago in your life and in recovery now since then.
Well, I just want to start with a quick story about right after resetting my days. And this is like a perfect example of the slippery gambler brain, what it will do. So I have 0 days and I'm thinking, oh my God, like I'm going to keep stacking these days like I did. And once I have a year or two, like I'm not going to want to lose the time again. So, and I sort of want to play poker. Like I still think about poker, So it's like I have 4 days now, and I had a trip to Boston coming up for Christmas, and I wasn't going to be going to a meeting in between then. So if I went to the casino and played poker and then went to Boston, went to a meeting, reset my days again, and then I would come back from Boston and go to the meeting and say, oh, now I have like 10 days or whatever. Like nobody in LA would be the wiser that I had sort of relapsed like again, you know? So that's what I did.
That's definitely like gambler brain.
Oh,
Right there.
the
Itself.
manipulative behavior is so
The
classic.
justification.
Yeah, I remember just sitting at home, like Anna was away for the day for hours, and I was sitting at home, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I have 4 days. Like I have this window. Like this is the only window that I have to play cards, probably for a long time, unless I just go off the rails completely." So I remember I drove to Hawaiian Gardens, or the Gardens, whatever they call it now. And I just remember my face was beet red from the time I left my apartment to the time I got back. And I spent more time driving to and from the Gardens than I did playing cards, because I didn't know what I was doing anymore. And I just sort of like was just being super aggressive and pushing chips around. And I was just so embarrassed at myself. I remember I couldn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I was just sitting at the table, just flush red, just so ashamed of myself. And then Anna texted me and she was like, oh, I'm coming home early. And I was like, all right.
I won't be there.
She wanted to play tennis. And I was like, well, I'm not going to make it home, but my window is now closing. And that was it. So I went through with the plan. I went home and then we went to Boston. I went to a meeting. I reset my days again. I told my whole story there. Came home, and since then, it's been pretty smooth, I gotta say. I mean, I've been on the up and up in terms of, had no more stock business. Like, it's sort of been difficult to not look at the charts. And right now we're going through another crypto bull run. And that has been, definitely taking some of my attention, from, every so often I'll take a look at that. But I can't bring myself to get back into it. And that's a beautiful thing.
Well, and now you have the support too with your beautiful wife.
I do.
Who does not want you to gamble.
She doesn't.
So, I mean, that's got to help a little bit. I know it does for me, being married to somebody that doesn't want me to gamble.
That definitely helps. It definitely helps. And there's very little like, what could I do now to lie to myself that, that would be a way to gamble, that I could convince myself that isn't? I don't know. I can't think of anything, and I don't want to think of anything.
I would say I've noticed a huge transformation in your recovery, I'd say in the last year. Do you feel like now there's something more specific mentally that you're focused on in recovery that's keeping you on that straight and narrow, whether consciously or subconsciously, different than those several years that you had all that abstinence? Like, what's the difference maker now in your recovery?
I actually think it's similar. I think I was on a great recovery path before the pandemic. And then just that isolation and the not going to meetings anymore and, shying away from going to Zoom meetings and whatnot, I just sort of devolved. And now I'm sort of back on the path that I was on before. And I went through I got a sponsor. It didn't really work out on this current run of recovery, and then I got another sponsor, and here I am with you two, and I'm just sort of like very connected. I play tennis every week with another member of the program, and just like super connected. And I'm so connected that thinking about relapsing is like, it's unthinkable, really. And the probably famous last words right there, but
Yeah. Knocking on wood right now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like an option at all. And being in recovery has allowed me the bandwidth to sort of focus on building out other aspects of my life. So, being this kind of being thrown into a personal training job that I may or may not have been qualified for. Like I did get, certified as a trainer and whatnot. And then I got some experience, and now I am, I've got years of experience as a trainer under my belt. And now I'm building out like the online component of that. And I have like the mental bandwidth to be able to do that because I'm not, obsessively poring over charts or reading poker books or whatever it is.
I think we can wrap up. Alyssa, any closing questions or comments for James?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. And the comment is that I want you to know that when I came in to recovery program feeling like, I'm the only one that has this crazy adventure with gambling and I have it worse than everybody else, it was comforting to hear your Boston accent because that made me kind of feel like home. And it's weird because I never thought about gambling until I was in my 40s. And that's mostly because growing up in Maine, there wasn't any gambling there. And there really wasn't in New England for a long time, at least growing up. So for me, it wasn't like in my face all the time, but so I was really shocked to see somebody else in a gambling recovery program that was from New England, because I thought it was the New Jersey part that rubbed off on me. But, I guess it just goes to show that it doesn't matter. Anybody's susceptible. It doesn't have to do with region geography. It doesn't have to do with geography. So, but yeah, thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah. And I think I would just say, I just loved this entire story of hearing about the kid and the development, the diagnosis, the mental, the drugs, the alcohol, all of it. And any number of people never survive that experience. And to now know who you are today, what we're experiencing with you in recovery today is, to me, another story of a miracle in somebody. And as I've told you privately, you personally have had a huge impact on my life in so many ways. And I love you so much. I'm so proud of you for where you've come from to where you are now, and for all the things that you're doing for me personally and for so many people that I think are around you in your life. So thank you so much for doing this. I do want to, though, close with one question, which is what I think is really important, is especially for all the things you've been through, and you've had multiple phases of recovery now, for that person out there who's listening, who's on day one, who thinks this is impossible. I don't know how to stop gambling. I'm on the grip of destruction, suicide. I don't know what to do. Is there a word or words of wisdom you can provide to that person?
Oh, definitely. And that is to stop listening to what your brain is saying, because your brain is not your friend at that point. It's not looking out for your best interests, and it's been totally warped and sort of tricked into becoming some other thing that does not have your best interest in mind. So just forget about what you're thinking. Forget if you think it's not going to work. Forget if you think it's impossible. Just go to a meeting, and then go to another meeting, and then another meeting, and another meeting, no matter what your brain is telling you.
Thank you so much, James. Another powerful episode in the Gambling Recovery Lounge.
Thank you for sharing. It's been a pleasure having
Thank you
on.
for having me on.
It's been totally awesome. Well, that's a wrap on episode 1 of season 2 in the Gambling Recovery Lounge. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll be back with the next episode in the Gambling Recovery Lounge.